Thank you. It's an honor to be here speaking. I apologize for not actually having a proper title slide with a name and everything on that, so refer to the program if you want to do that. And this is not really a talk about cartographic education in the sense of the other ones. It's a talk about trying to use maps for a course that had really nothing to do with cartography. As you can see there, it had the kind of clickbait sort of style title of Hike, Bike, Skate, Surf, Ski, Geographies of Adventure. And I wanted to basically use maps as a means of getting students to engage with archival materials or non-archival materials, cultural materials, and then have them also collect a bunch of examples that they could use later on at the end of the class and hopefully for later things. Fortunately, as part of that class, one of the recommended books was from our keynote speaker, so it was super happy for me to be able to come to this conference. And so a generic example of the kind of thing I was after, and this is not a hike, bike, skate, surf, ski example, but more a Tacoma and place kind of thing. A student might listen to the Nico Case song, Thrice All-American, which waxes poetic about a Tacoma that I fear is not here anymore. Tacoma has certainly been found if there's 450 some cartographers here right now in a relatively fancy hotel. So basically what I was trying to do with this class is take online quizzes that they have to do anyways. It was actually an online class for this first iteration, and have them in what was hopefully a painless form, although this may be an issue, identify materials from online archival resources like historical newspapers in this case, or YouTube, or potentially Facebook if we're talking about more modern things. Pick out that item, add it to this collection, maybe take a quote from it, and then sort of submit it. And then magically in the background, the quiz gets processed and plunked into yet another system. So a more pertinent example from the class, and you might recognize this image from the keynote speech. This is a quote from Kate Harris's book. She actually had been watching her partner do cartwheels for a while, thinking she was having a great time, until she stopped and realized this. So here's the moment there. So this is, again, kind of an example a student might pick out and stick on a quiz, and then add some more information to that, thematic information, etc. And so the workflow for this actually fits in fairly well with our previous talks, so I'm happy to have people who will be able to say, you totally did this wrong, here's a better way to do it. We basically took the content or the learning management system, Canvas is what University of Oregon uses, which is okay, but not that great for displaying a whole bunch of stuff and collecting things. Feeding that into a content management system, in this case Omeka, which is kind of designed for library collections and things like that. And then having some way of tying those together with an interactive map. So that's kind of the story of what's going on here. So basic motivation for the project or the development of this class, and so it was a new class, and this sort of interactive map was a big chunk of it, was to promote humanities type skills, try and engage students with reading things, looking at art, and relating them to some sort of broader topic, and also introducing geographic skills like just urban geography, say in the case of skateboarding, or feminism and early bicycling is a really early sort of interesting sort of topic, and how, movement through space and stuff like that. Engage students with archival collections, which is sometimes a tricky thing to do, and trying to, again, have them share that engagement. Engage with contemporary culture as well, relate that to what they're doing in the classes. And then the reason for the map was over on the right, examine the bias of collections. Is everyone getting examples from the same place? You could probably talk about bias in all sorts of other ways as well. temporal bias? Is it all the same time period? Is it all from the same cultures? So on and so forth. And to stick some more geography, I guess, into these visual or written or even audio sorts of things. Motivation for this talk, which I actually consider a plea for help more than a talk, is really why did I stick with the learning management system in the first place rather than sort of abandoning it right away? Why use a quiz to do that? Why use this online collection? Why use an interactive map? And how to kind of tie these together. And really the main motivation for my side is how can this be done better? So again, feel free to jump in with questions or suggestions at the end. I'll try and keep this brief. So the learning management system basically was the Canvas learning system. And my main issue is trying to get it to play nicely with the content management system as well. I didn't want to have to teach students also how to use the content management system, although perhaps I should have in retrospect. So why stick with it? Arguments against it. And really why sticking with it was I stuck with it in terms of making the quiz. So building quizzes in Canvas. Has anyone done this before? There must be some super happy thing to do. Obviously, everyone is smiling about that. I decided to stick with it because grades were integrated into there. Again, maybe not the best choice in retrospect. So, but for my purposes, I wanted to spit out a fairly clean data set that I could then do a little processing and connect it with other stuff. Here's what it looks like. There are some problems. The quiz interface is really not that friendly, and it turns out it's less friendly to the grader than it is to the student. And talk to your grad students about that, because they'll give you an earful. You had to put in correct answers for things that there was not a correct answer for. If I'm asking for a place that your example came from, it didn't necessarily come from Eugene, Oregon in USA, but Canvas wanted a sort of answer for one of those and would mark them wrong if they didn't put in the right thing, and that caused some confusion there. So that was some of the issues. And this just gives you the lovely interface there that Canvas presents you. Alternative to using that, which was probably where I'm going to try and go with this in the future, because it's better for some things, is using Qualtrics, which again, not open source, but university has a license for that and gives a lot more options for kind of splitting and formatting and double checking what people are putting in, which turned out to be kind of a time sink in the next phase. So I think I addressed those first two a little bit. Why an online collection, or what is it? I used Omeka, and here's their little blurb there. It's open source. There is an omeka.net that you can kind of get an online account and use it, and it's a web publishing platform, but really designed for collection sort of content. So examples of lots of photographs with some thematic information, things like that. Very nice tool. Omeka.net didn't really give me the customization I was after, so I used Reclaim Hosting, basically getting a little server. They're pretty good for academic pricing is awesome. If you're thinking about this kind of stuff, I think it was $50 a year. Just renewed my thing. And it gives you the cPanel, and you can put in all sorts of fun open source stuff on there, and I had a Omeka dashboard set up for that. So by the end of the class, we had, 414 items, 20 different quote collections, one user, me, and then the students were sort of the lookers for all of that. And as an administrator, you browse the collections. It's not that exciting. You can look at the sort of items within the collections, dig into an individual item. And they're nice. You can have embedded content in videos or link to other web pages, et cetera, et cetera. So what I was getting students to do is identify items, add some thematic content, and then the quiz would be brought into the system here. And the other thing Omeka does is has a sort of primitive map, but you can't do much with it. So I ended up moving out of Omeka, but that's getting ahead of the story. So I can link the LMS with Omeka by a CSV file, which sounds magical and simple, but it's not. So here's the CSV file as exported from Canvas. Look at that in Excel, and the entire questions are actually on the top, and there's some mysterious columns that I have no idea what they are. They're very mysterious still. So I had to massage it or data wrangle it or something like that. And that's where Python and the Anaconda stack came in, because there's very good kind of data cleaning kind of stuff there. So we'd read in a survey, do all sorts of fancy things to drop columns we didn't need, and then format it such that Omeka could bring it right in. And that worked relatively well. Had to do some geocoding as part of that. I wasn't asking students to additionally learn where the lat long is giving me points. They'd give me place names, tried to geocode those. Of course, you have to do some data cleanup if anyone's giving you place names, so that was an issue there. The other thing they did was add tags, and you'll notice there's an awful lot of tags there. A lot of them are very similar, so aggregating those tags would have been a nice thing to do as well. So this map was not so great. It had limited functionality, couldn't customize it that much, so decided to leap out of this world yet again with another CSV file. So we exported out of Omeka this time. Not very smooth, so then once again returned to Python and used Folium to try and process the CSV, now with all sorts of tags and location on it, into an actual interactive map. So used pandas for a lot of the data cleanup, Folium to kind of churn out this last interactive map. There's some examples of all the lovely data columns that get stuck in there, and used a Jupyter notebook, exported it, did some data cleanup. Again, not as easy as it sounds. Pop-ups ended up being really terrible to try and format. I could talk about that forever. Icon choices, you get a little more customization, also a bit of a problem. But eventually I got to what I thought was relatively okay. You'll notice my icons are still problematic, and there's all sorts of things, again, with data cleaning and wrangling. Leaflet didn't like parentheses in certain places, which made it hard for students to put quotations into the things they wanted, because I had to get rid of the quotations after they stuck them in there. So there's more data cleaning there. The bad title blew me up, so I spent a while figuring out how to get rid of the bad title. So finally, the lessons learned. The LMS was great, but it's clunky, a pain to grade. Open source tools were fabulous, but pretty time consuming to get going. Crowdsourced data is messy data, even if you think it's not going to be messy. Icons are great, but very problematic. Great packages to work with, but I guess the really last two take-home things were, one, trying to make things easy is much harder than you think. Many of us know that already. And then the whole theme of the class was hike, bike, skate, surf, ski. I spent so much time reading about the topic and wrangling with this that it was incredibly frustrating that I really didn't get to do any of that for the preceding months and during that entire class period. So thanks. I'd like to acknowledge basically the students who took the class. They were kind of guinea pigs. Oregon Humanities Center, who supported the work. Joanna Merson, Infographics Lab at the University of Oregon, who helped with figuring out some of the stuff. My graduate employee, Bianca Malkoc, and the UO Geography Department. Thank you very much.